Hey guys, it's Will here, welcome back to the channel. Tonight got something that I haven't done for a long time, an Age of Sigmar battle report. Those of you who've been subscribers for a few years may remember I did a couple of these back in first edition, but this is going to be my first one in second edition, even though it's been out for 18 months or so now. So doing 2,000 points against Will. I have played Will a couple of times before on the channel, back when I was in the Iron Hand League, but this is our first time playing Sigmar. He's relatively new to playing Sigmar actually, so do forgive him anything he gets wrong or we don't remember. He's still kind of learning the game, but he's very kindly agreed to let me batter at this. So tonight, got my 2,000 points of Stormcast. Painted as the Hammers of Sigmar, but I'm running them without a Storm host because I wanted to use some of the generic traits rather than the Storm host abilities. So my leader down here is my Lord Relictor. So he's going to be leading my force. His additional prayer is the translocation, so he can teleport a unit around. And then I've got my and his Warlord trait. I don't think it's Warlord trait. Command ability. Is it command ability? Command trait is going to be Staunch Defender, so units within 9 inches of him that don't run or charge get +1 to their armour. Units wholly within, so going to want to cluster around him a bit. Got my Knight Heraldor, the hero of my my last bat rep I did for this, where he just completely destroyed half a Lizardman army. Not as good in this edition, but more reliable. And then my other hero's going to consist of a Knight Incantor. She's going to have the spell that you cast on a unit and it does mortal wounds back when they're attacked. The name's escaped me right now, but yeah, she's going to be unleashing that. And then a Lord Ordinator. Obviously, I was planning to take these couple of Celestar Ballistas, so a Lord Ordinator is a great choice. And then got a couple of endless spells to keep my Knight Incantor busy as well. Got the Balewind Vortex and the Soul Snare Shackles. Going back to my battle line, I've got 2 units of 10 Liberators, just hammer and shield straight out the starter box. And 5 Judicators with the bows on there and the Shockbolt bow on the Prime. Then 5 Retributors. Usually the star melee unit of this list, although there's something in his army that could completely mess them up. And then finally, the Piece de Resistance, my Star Drake. So this is a Drakesworn Templar with a lance, and he's going to have the relic for my army, which is going to be the armour of Silvered Sigmarite, so -1 to hit in combat, which is very nice, and going to hopefully keep him alive a little bit longer. So yeah, sorry if that's a bit disjointed when I've read through that. I'm still kind of getting the hang of Age of Sigmar, but been playing a few games and having some good fun, so hopefully should have a good game tonight. Anyway, let's go and have a look at Will's Demons of Nurgle. And here's Will's Demons of Nurgle army. So a lot of this is his 40k army, which you may have seen on the channel back when I was in the Iron Hand League, but he's added some new stuff to this, and that's the great thing about Demons. You can run them in 40k and Sigmar, which makes me wonder why I don't play them, because I play both. It would be great. But yeah, the force here is 2,000 points, and it is mostly using the Taliban formation. So he's got the Great Unclean one, and that is Rotigus. I'm not sure if he's being run as Rotigus. He's got magnetised arms and some of them are still being painted, but he looks pretty cool. Then for his other characters, we've got a Sloppity Bile Piper, what are you called? Spoilpox Scrivener, and a Poxbringer there. And the Poxbringer is the general, and his ability is the Witherstave. That's the one that allows forces me to reroll 6s to hit. Yeah. Within 12, so that's pretty nasty. Actually going to mess my Retributors up a little bit because they like their 6s to hit. Then he's got 3 units of Plague Bearers. Purple squad is 30, green squad is 30, and then just a 10-man unit to fill out the slot there because those are compulsory. 3 bases of Nurglings and 3 of the Plague Drones, and 1 tree. The other tree you see there, and all these extra Nurglings are for summoning. because this is basically all the demons he's got, he hasn't got many units put aside for summoning, but obviously as units die they can start to come back through that summoning method. And also these this Taliban gives him an additional wound back every turn, or D3 on Plague Bearer units, so this army is going to be very hard to chew through. Once he gets those Plague Bearers onto an objective, it's going to be a hell of a job to shift them off. Okay, so we're all set up, and the mission we've rolled tonight is the Better Part of Valour. So we've got this end-to-end deployment here with 6 objectives, and you don't actually score them simply by holding them. You have to destroy them, which you can choose to do at the end of any turn that you hold it, but the longer you've held it before destroying it, the more points it is worth. And we'll finish setting up first by a long way, because he had 1 drop basically, whereas I had all of these. So as you can see, he's got his characters in the middle there, with the 2 big blobs of Plague Bearers nearby to benefit from all their buffs. Drones out on the flank, Nurglings out on this flank to tag that objective, and then his Nurglings in Plague Bearers there, Nurglings in reserves. I've got my Lord Relictor there with Staunch Defender to buff my Retributors and Liberators, with my other support characters there. Second unit of Liberators on this flank to cover that approach. Judicators over here to give some fire support. Dragon to the back because he can go up and over. And Bolt Throwers on the hill for better line of sight. At the moment, Will has chosen to go first, and the Cycle of Corruption he rolled a 1 for, so he gets +2 movement this turn, which is actually really handy. Now, Will did come up with a little bit of a backstory, because we have this single house in the middle of the board here. And what he's been thinking here is that my Lord Relictor, this in his previous life was his old family home, and that tree there used to be a tree that as a child he used to climb and play on, and since becoming a Stormcast he's been having visions of his old family home and this tree, but gradually those visions have turned into nightmares, and as a Lord Relictor he knows that dreams aren't just random things of the mind, they often mean something. So with Sigmar's blessing, he's led a force out to investigate what's going on there. And when he's come to this place, he's seen the whole place has been corrupted by Nurgle, and even the old tree that he used to climb as a child is now a feculent gnarlmaul. And not only that, but Rotigus is leading a vast horde of Plague Bearers across this land. And so the visions have proved somewhat prophetic, and he must stop them. So yeah, that's what's going on here. Sigmar is great for a little bit of narrative, so we tend to play a bit less competitively here than we do for 40k, which is really high-end competitive at this club sometimes. So yeah, without further ado, let's roll on to Chaos, turn 1. So start of the turn, Will generated a bunch of contagion points, and then started off with some attempts at spellcasting. He put Mystic Shield onto these guys here, so they're going to be a little bit tougher to kill than they already are. And Rotigus also attempted to do Deluge of Nurgle, but thankfully for me failed, because apparently that can do quite a nasty rain of mortal wounds. With the extra speed, he was able to get his army almost to mid-table from the word go, which is pretty handy for him, and brought this unit of Nurglings down into my deployment zone, which will help him later on to potentially grab this objective and basically give me something I have to deal with from the word go. But other than that, as is typical for a first turn from LA Army in Sigmar, not a lot happened, so straight on to Stormcast turn 1. So I had a bit more to do in my turn. Started off by casting Balewind Vortex here, so my Knight Incantor is now flying up here, and then she cast Azurite Halo onto the Star Drake, so any 6s to save that makes are now going to do a mortal wound back to the unit shooting it, so that's pretty handy. Didn't cast any prayers because there was nothing really in range I wanted to do, and I blew the trumpet at my Star Drake, allowing it to run and charge. Movement phase, I shimmied the bolt throwers around a little bit, the ballistas around a little bit, to bring one of them within 18 inches of the Nurglings that were down here.
These guys ran up to try and get a little bit closer, but didn't get all that far. The rest of this guy, the rest of my liberators, plus my support characters and my retributors, pushed up slowly, not running, so I still get the benefits of Staunch Defender. And the Star Drake ran, used a CP because I rolled a 1, so I thought change that to a 6, get that nice and close, because I can still charge thanks to the Trumpet Blast. And yeah, so that flew over there and got nice and close. Shooting phase, the only thing that was actually in range were the Nurglings, so 2 Celestar Ballistas and my Judicators just lit them up. He gets summoning points if they're in my deployment zones, or in my territory, so needed to wipe them out, but also they were starting to threaten my objective, so yeah, we don't want that. And yeah, I did Roiling Thunderhead with the Star Drake. Normally do Rain of Falling Stars, but Roiling Thunderhead was better in this case. Killed 3 of the Plague Bearers with that. And my Trumpet Blast targeted those woods over there and did 3 mortal wounds there and 3 mortal wounds there. Were any of them saved?
I did save twice,
Saved 2 on there from Disgustingly Resilient, so not a lot of damage there. Then the disappointment of the turn was my Star Drake failing a charge. It needed a 7, I got a 5, but because I'd already had to use my 1 command point to get the 6-inch run, I couldn't do anything about it, so he's kind of stuck there now. So yeah, end of the first turn, very little's been done, but we're both poised to strike, and I have taken out that pesky unit of Nurglings, but it's not a big advantage. And yeah, it's going to come down now, I think, to who can seize the opportunity and tip the balance in their favour. So yeah, we're going to roll for priority for this turn. So I have a 2. Will has a 3. So would you like priority? Yep, he wants priority. So here we go with Chaos, turn 2. The forces of Nurgle had priority this turn, and the cycle of plague carried on to give them +1 to wound. So with that in effect, he was looking to get into combat. Rotigus once again cast Mystic Shield on the bloat drones, and these plague bearers ran. The other units just sort of shimmied up a little bit, didn't do a lot. Nice thing about having that feculent normal in the centre is that the Plague Bearers can run and charge. Rotigus also failed to cast Deluge of Nurgle for the 2nd turn in a row, although he was now close enough that I probably could have just considered dispelling it with my Knight Incantor, who hasn't used her Voidstorm Scroll yet, but that is a trick for another day, I think. The shooting was completely ineffectual. He had a few little bolus attacks at the Star Drake, but didn't do a lot. And then charged in with the bloat drones into the Star Drake and the Plague Bearers in a bit of a conga line into the front of my battle line. They, to be honest, didn't do a lot. In fact, I think they did nothing, but didn't take many casualties in return. Attacking on a narrow front here is serving more to pin me than to actually do a lot of damage. Over here, he did put a couple of wounds on the Star Drake and took a mortal wound back thanks to Azurite Halo. In response, the Star Drake failed to swallow any of the bloat drones. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to put that anywhere near my mouth either. And he did do a few wounds with his melee attacks. Killed one and did a bit of damage to another, but nothing really telling. So yeah, a little bit of a non-eventful turn, but you know, things are still finely poised. We've both been holding all 3 of our own objectives for 2 turns. So now is sort of the point where we're going to need to start to think when we want to cash those in versus when we want to start claiming victory. Hold them in for longer. But yeah, here we go with Stormcast turn 2. Turn 2 actually went pretty well for the Stormcast. Started off with my Lord Relictor, who prayed Translocation on the Liberator unit nearest him and dropped them right down on that unguarded objective. So yeah, that's actually a really handy move there, and could really start to tip the balance in this game. Other than that, my Retributors were affected by the Trumpet Blast, allowing them to fall back and then charge again, which is nice. And I pushed up this Liberator unit. As for spells, didn't really achieve a great deal. I tried to put Soul Snare Shackles out, try saying that 10 times fast, to prevent this second unit of Nurglings, of Plague Bearers, from getting towards the centre of the board, but as it was dispelled by his Poxbringer. Did cast Azurite Halo onto the Retributors, but where they were in combat with the Plague Bearers, it didn't end up doing anything. Other than that, Stardrake did its roiling Thunderhead on these guys. It actually rolled really well, got 6 mortal wounds, but then he saved 3 of them with his Disgustingly Resilient. Put a couple of wounds on with Adjudicators, like 1 wound with the Ballistas. They were just outside of 18, and the -1 to hit with ranged attacks that these guys had really made it very hard for my Ballistas to hit. Oh, sorry, they were just inside 18, which is why it was so hard for them to hit, because they had -1, which put them down to 5s to hit. So yeah, didn't achieve a lot with the shooting, but then when the Retributors charged in, they hammered the Nurglings, Plague Bearers, killed a bunch of them, and also killed a whole bunch of them, and then he lost some more to morale as well. It was like taken 9 casualties and then rolled a 5. Stardrake didn't do a lot. Did kill 1 of the bloat drones, but again didn't want to swallow any of them whole and couldn't get them with his tail. So a little bit of a slow grind in the middle, but where these guys had grabbed that objective meant I scored that, and I decided to convert it straight away to score a point, because there's a good chance this unit will just sweep me off their next turn. So Liberator scored me the first points of the game, and in a second we're going to roll for priority. The forces of Nurgle got priority again this turn, so it's been quite a nice back and forth here rather than silly double turns that break the game. And he continued to conga these guys down the middle of the board. Rotigus once again failed to cast Nurgle's Deluge, or Deluge of Nurgle. He rolled a 4+ for the 3rd time in a row. He also failed to cast Mystic Shield, so he's really not having a good game. He's really failed to influence this game in any meaningful way so far, which could be costly, because I imagine he's a fair few points of not doing much. But he could come into his own later on, we shall see. Obviously wasn't going to be a lot of shooting, but these guys ran, and then the big green blob, and thanks to the Narmal were able to charge, going into the Liberators and failing to do anything. Liberators only did a couple of wounds back. Over here he did kill off 1 of my Retributors, but subsequently lost a bunch of these guys to my melee attacks. Unfortunately for me, he then rolled a 1 for his morale, so reality flickered, and he got another 3 back, so that unit is still going to be a bit of a pain. Oh, at the start of the turn, the Cycle of Plague did a mortal wound to my Retributors. Basically, everyone near terrain features took mortal wounds on a 6, but it was only my Retributors, and so, yeah. That contributed to the death of the 1 guy, which is unfortunate, but I still got 4 of them, and certainly we're up on casualty figures, because that really is the only casualty I've taken. But points wise, he was able to get that bloat drone out of combat and onto the objective there, which he then chose to destroy, because I was just going to claim it back next turn otherwise. So it's 1-1, still pretty tight on points, but it really is time for the Stormcast to push the advantage now. Stormcast turn 3, and we basically just continued to drive the attack forward. So Liberators, Retributors, Stardrake all pushing in to try and surround here. Spells were largely ineffective. I failed to cast Mystic Shield, put Azurite Halo onto the Liberators, but then they barely took any hits, so they didn't really get a lot from that. Other than that, I did kill 1 Nurgling when I 2 wounds onto the bloat drone when I prayed lightning on him, and then he was then finished off by the first of my ballistas. Second one killed 1 Nurgling from the Plague Bearer from the purple unit, and the Stardrake did another Roiling Thunderhead, which killed a few more from the green unit, and then put the Liberators, Stardrake and other Liberators into the green Plague Bearer unit and really started to hammer them back. He actually needs to do a bravery check for them in a second, which we'll do in a minute. They killed one Liberator and lost a total of, I'm seeing, about 14 casualties so far. So yeah, that they're going to be in big trouble now. Just no unit did particularly well. It was just they were surrounded and taking multiple sources of damage from these guys, the Roiling Thunderhead, Liberator attacks. It's trying to whittle them down so I can start to think about grabbing these objectives. Retributors finished off the purple unit, and yeah, Stormcast are grinding out the victory here. But there's 2 dice rolls we need to make now, which might be fun to make on camera. First, the bravery check. So they've lost 14, you say, and the bravery 10. They rolled a 5, so that's a bravery 11, sorry, but even with the 5, that's 19, so that's another 8. So yeah, they are starting to wither away now. I think if Stormcast get priority here, we could really turn the tide against the forces of Nurgle for good. But, you know, that's a big roll. I got a 5. Will's got a 2. Okay, so I think I am going to take priority here and try and drive home the killing blow before he gets a double turn. So really wanted to make the most of getting the double turn there. So I started by teleporting up my Retributors. So see, they were just down here. They are now over there. Pushed up my Star Drake and both my Liberator units as well. Didn't need to go far. The target was already in sight. And then just started killing Plague Bearers. So tried to kill some off with the Star Drake's Rain of Falling Stars, but didn't do a huge amount. Had to actually run both my ballistas because I'd run out of Nurgle units that were in range and line of sight. These guys killed a couple, but nothing spectacular. But then it was all about the combat. The Retributors, have to say, got a bit lucky, rolled an 11 for my charge, which got them in, and they butchered this unit, claiming that objective. And over here, just sheer weight of numbers. The dragon didn't kill a huge amount, but it just opened up a gap for my Liberators to pile in, and they swept in. Again, didn't kill a lot. In fact, probably lost the combat on wounds, but just the number of guys there meant I was also claiming that objective, and decided that to deny Will the chance of claiming either objective, I'd destroy both of them, only worth a point each, but that puts me on 3 points to 1, and his nearest objectives are down here. And while there are armies that can get across the board in a couple of turns, Nurgle Daemons with their cavalry already taken care of aren't one of them. So in theory he could still try and summon something, but there's obviously restrictions and limitations on that. So Will said at that point he wanted to call it, which is fair enough. So good game, mate. Thanks a lot. I'll see you guys in a minute for the post-game.
Okay, so a victory for the Stormcast. So always nice to actually pick up a win on my own channel for a change. So that's good. I'm certainly not complaining there. And although there was certainly a bit of luck involved in that, but hey, we play a game with dice. We take the luck as it comes. Big thanks to Will for letting me film that. It's great to have such a nice looking army to play against, and I know that you're only still kind of learning the game, Will, so thanks for letting me film that. And I think if you, as I watched the battle report back there, you could see that both of us are still lacking in experience with Age of Sigmar and with our armies. We both made a few mistakes. I think it just came down to kind of a bit of dice, and also me having a little bit more experience there. So I messed up my deployment big time. Sticking those bolt throwers or ballistas on the hill was a really dumb move. I should have had them further forward. I don't know, I just think of them as really long range, and actually they want to get within 18 inches. I've even heard tell of some people reserving them and deep striking them, which is actually a really good idea because you can get them from like turn 2 onwards in 18 inches. And obviously you can deep strike the Lord Ordinator, the guy that buffs them, so that might be a nice little strategy to try sometime. But yeah, I think my basic battle line worked well, having my Liberators and Retributors gather around my general to gain a little bit of a defensive boost early in the game. And that all went nicely. I think from Will's point of view, Rotigus really let him down. Not only did he fail to cast every single turn, he tried to cast Nurgle's Deluge, I think it's called, which is only a 7 to cast, so it's not, a really hard spell. It's a little bit tougher than some, but you should still be getting it off more often than not. And he failed it literally every single time, and that can actually put out quite a few mortal wounds. And I'm not sure quite what Will's intention was, but he seemed to be hanging Rotigus back quite a lot, so I don't know if his kind of main intention was that he was going to defend that objective and just pump out mortal wounds with his spell. But having looked at Rotigus's War Scroll, I think maybe he should have moved him more further forward. And yeah, any criticism I give here is intended to be constructive. But yeah, I think he kind of blocked Rotigus off with his big swarm of Plague Bearers, which aren't as hard to get through in Age of Sigmar as they are in 40k. I've played against that army a couple of times with several different forces in 40k, and yeah, those Plague Bearers are an absolute nightmare to clear out in 40k. In Sigmar, I mean, they're still tough, they're still, have a chance to get back up, and they've got the disgustingly resilient, they're just a nuisance, but they're not as bad as they are in 40k, and the combination of my Retributors and Liberators were able to really start putting the hurt on them. So yeah, and then it just came down to a bit of back and forth, tit for tat, on grabbing each other's objective with units that were a little bit overexposed and far forward, but just the weight of the Stormcast, being a both resilient and powerful force to with my core there, with my Liberators and my Retributors and the Dragon all pushing up together, sort of just ground down the forces of Nurgle, and we were able to break the lines. And I think he didn't maybe make as much of summoning as he could have done, but I don't know quite how it works for Nurgle, but I know they can summon, and he wasn't able to get any summoning off. That could have been a big game changer as well. So with units starting to pop up in my back lines, which were starting to become a bit exposed as my main units pushed forward. So yeah, certainly learning points for us both there, but a good fun game, and that's obviously the main thing, especially with Sigmar, as we kind of play it a bit less competitively than we do 40k. We had a good laugh, and yeah, played a really nice battle that just looked absolutely fantastic, with a decent table and 2 really nice armies. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thanks a lot for watching. Might be a little bit of a break in videos for a week or 2 now, because I'm going on holiday and I don't think I'm going to have any Wi-Fi while I'm there at all. And even if I do, I'm not really going to have access to anything else to film with. So yeah, but I will be back, so stay tuned. I've already got a 40k bat rep shot, my Scythes of the Emperor taking on Sam's Tyranids, so that should be fun. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Bye.